Hello, my name's Craig Earlham, Senior Market Analyst at Oanda, and today we're going to talk about the US dollar versus the Canadian dollar. Now, I think this is a really interesting chart that we've got here. It's one where we've seen a clear uptrend now for quite some time. We've trended nicely in this rising channel. The momentum hasn't been too fast, so it's been a very gradual rise throughout this period. And this has been underlined and been supported along the way by that 200 and 233 day simple moving average bands. Now, once again, recently we've tested those bands, and at this point those bands have coincided with the bottom of that rising channel, and prices have reversed up nicely off of that. So that's given us this nice little bullish kick which we've seen since then. From a purely technical perspective, we've also got that little inverse head and shoulders on the chart which we've broken above, which suggests that momentum to the upside is building even further, and we had that nice little spike out of that level which took us back towards the kind of mid part of this range, kind of around the 134s. Now, we've seen a bit of a consolidation since then, but I don't really think it's anything more than that. We've seen now 3 or 4 days where we've seen a little bit of downside, but nothing too aggressive. And we're also now coming back into that area around the kind of 133, 133.50 levels. This is an area that was previously support, previously resistance, and now is looking like a support for the pair. So this is a potential rotation point for this if we are going to see a nice little bounce again to the upside. In terms of where we can go on here, the good thing about these inverse head and shoulders is they do provide potential or possible price projection levels, where you get the conservative price projection level being the size of the move from the shoulder to the neckline projected higher, and the more aggressive from the head to the neckline projected higher. Again, this is just very much textbook stuff. Nothing is guaranteed in trading, and these are just meant to be indicative levels. But what they do indicate is that there could be some more upsides coming in this pair. And with the more aggressive price level, this takes us back towards those previous peaks that we were seeing previously, around the kind of 135, 136 levels. And that's going to be, if we do reach these levels, that's going to be the next big test for this pair. In terms of where we go beyond this, I'm very much just keeping a close eye on the bottom of this channel. The bottom of this channel, coinciding nicely with those moving averages, is, I think, going to be a key indicator of when we do see a breakout to the downside. From a fundamental perspective, both of these economies are relatively closely tied. They're both performing a little bit softer now than they have done previously. Both central banks are now taking a more cautious approach, having raised interest rates previously. One potential support for the Canadian dollar could come from a continued appreciation in oil prices, with Canada being a major exporter. But as we've seen now more recently, with US pumping more and more oil, that may be less impactful when we're looking at something like the US dollar. But it's certainly worth keeping an eye on for, to see if that correlation is maintained with the Canadian dollar, or whether in this particular case the correlation itself actually weakens. But again, when we're looking at this chart from a very technical perspective, this is a really nice chart to be keeping an eye on, and the bearish trigger could come, like I say, if we do break below that rising channel, rising moving average combo, below the 131 support, and that's where momentum could potentially start to build to the downside. But as ever with these things, this is still in a rising channel, this is still in a very clear rising trend, so we can wait, we may have to wait some time before we actually get that breakout. But as far as I'm concerned, this is still a very interesting chart, and one that could play out quite nicely over the coming weeks.